to Karen, practically tackling Jack onto the cushions. Jack was paralyzed. On one hand, he was a red-blooded male being pursued by a beautiful woman. On the other hand, if he responded, the gay ruse was dead, and he'd be homeless by sunrise. Jack, Karen whispered, her face inches from his, you don't have to be so shy. I'm not shy, Jack cried. I'm very disciplined. I'm a monk of the culinary arts. Just as Karen leaned in for the kill, the lights snapped on. Stanley Roper stood there in his pajamas, looking like a very angry, very confused owl. Jack, Stanley bellowed. Jack scrambled off the sofa, nearly tripping over a coffee table. Mr. Roper, I can explain. We were just discussing the political climate of the East Coast. I saw what I saw, Stanley shouted, his face turning a shade of purple that matched Helen's caftan. You're normal. You're a deceiver. You're a man. Wait. Helen's voice rang out as she stepped into the room. She looked at Karen, who was straightening her dress with a look of immense disappointment. Stanley, look at the boy. He's terrified. He should be, Stanley yelled. I'm throwing him out. Pack your pans. Tripper. Uncle Stanley, stop, Karen said, her voice dripping with annoyance. He didn't do anything. That's the problem. He spent the whole night talking about his feelings and the proper way to deglaze a pan. I practically threw myself at him, and he acted like I was a telemarketer. Stanley paused. He looked at Jack. Really, it's true, Jack said, leaning into the lie with the desperation of a drowning man. I was very uncomfortable. The aggression was quite startling. Stanley's anger evaporated instantly. He felt a wave of pity for his niece and a surge of relief for his rental income. Oh, well, poor girl. She's over the hill. Jack, don't mind her. Over the hill. Karen shrieked. I'm 22. Anyway, Stanley said, patting Jack on the shoulder. I'm sorry I doubted you. You're a good lad, a safe lad. Jack escaped to the hallway, his heart hammering against his ribs. He climbed the stairs to 201, expecting to find the girls asleep. Instead, they were waiting. Where have you been? Jonna asked, her arms crossed. Jack didn't say a word. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He handed it to Jonna. She opened it. Inside was her cameo. You bought it back, she whispered, her anger melting away like ice under the California sun. I couldn't spend Roper's blood money on myself, Jack said, leaning against the doorframe. Happy birthday, Johnny. Jonna looked at the cameo, then at Jack. She knew he had spent the night in a terrifying tightrope walk of lies and near evictions just to get this back for her. The cake is a little dry, she said, her voice trembling slightly. And the beef is now a solid. But I think we can still celebrate. I'll get the beer, Chrissy said, beaming. As they sat around the small kitchen table, the laughter started to flow. Outside, the Santa Monica night was cool and quiet. Inside apartment 201, the three of them were more than just roommates. They were a secret, a scandal, and a miracle of 1970s cohabitation. They were company, and for now, that was more than enough. Chapter 5. The Anniversary Gift. The following week brought a new kind of chaos to the apartment. It began with Helen Roper dropping by to borrow some milk, a common occurrence that usually involved 10 minutes of Helen lamenting her social life and 30 seconds of actual milk borrowing. 20 years, Jeanne, Helen sighed, leaning against the kitchen counter. 20 years of Stanley snoring, his leisure suits, and his uncanny ability to forget every significant date in human history. Your anniversary? Jeanne asked, pouring the milk. The big 2-0, Helen confirmed. My social calendar consists of watching Beretta and Charlie's Angels with a man who thinks romance is a side order of fries. I do envy you young people. The boyfriends, the excitement, the flat brokenness of it all. But while Helen was dreaming of excitement, Jack was currently being gifted some. He arrived home carrying a cardboard box that was whimpering. Jack, what is that? Jeanne asked, her eyes narrowing. It's a business transaction, Jack said, his voice brimming with false confidence. Honest Larry owed me $25. He didn't have the cash, but he had a surplus of puppies. So I canceled the debt and took the dog. It's a win-win. It's a lose-lose. Jeanne corrected. Mr. Roper has one rule. No dogs, no babies. We aren't exactly overflowing with infants, but that puppy is a ticking time bomb of eviction. But look at her face. Chrissy cried, already cradling the golden fluff ball. She's so cute. She doesn't even know she's a lease violation. The problem, however, wasn't just the dog. It was Chrissy's nerves. Her new boss, a man she referred to as Christopher Columbus because of his tendency to explore office boundaries, was driving her to the brink. When Chrissy got nervous, she didn't just bite her nails, she walked in her sleep. That night, the apartment became a theater of the absurd. Jack and Jeanne were awoken by the sound of the front door clicking shut. They found Chrissy, eyes glazed and barefoot, wandering toward the stairs. Chrissy, Jack whispered, yelled, catching her by the arm. Back to bed. No exploring. They managed to guide her back, but the dog hidden in a box in the kitchen began to whine. Jack, in a fit of panic genius, began to make whining sounds of his own to mask the noise when Stanley Roper wandered into the hallway to check the mail at 3:00 a.m. Jack, is that you? Stanley asked, peering into the gloom. What's that noise? I stubbed my toe. Mr. Roper, Jack whimpered, clutching his foot and letting out a high-pitched yelp. This is just how I cry. It's very soulful. You're a very strange person, Tripper, Stanley muttered, shaking his head. The tension peaked when Helen Roper invited herself in the next day to taste Jack's French cooking. Jack, distracted by the puppy hidden under the table, accidentally handed Helen a bowl of beef bourguignon that was actually high-end dog food mixed with marrowbone jelly. It's textured. Helen